Colorado River.
The Colorado River.
Colorado River.
Colorado River.
Kayna Whitworth traveled along the Colorado River and has more on the fight to preserve a way of life before it's too late.
Winding through canyons of legend, deserts painted by time, and cities built on the river's promise, the Colorado River is more than just a waterway. It's the sustaining artery of the American West, carving a path from the snow-capped Rocky Mountains through the sun-baked expanses of the Southwest. This river is a living chronicle of adaptation, endurance, and sheer mystery. Its waters have shaped landscapes, carved icons such as the majestic Grand Canyon, and fueled the growth of cities from Denver to Phoenix and Las Vegas. But in July 2025, an unnerving new chapter gripped scientists and stunned the world. The Colorado River, near the Grand Canyon, turned a remarkable blood-red hue. Scientists, government officials, and communities alike raced to find answers, confronted with a vision that unsettled ancient legend and modern certainty alike. What force could turn the river's blue-green currents into a ribbon of scarlet? What power, hidden in stone or water, had suddenly risen to the surface? While negotiations over the river's future were stuck in gridlock, a torrent of astonishing discoveries began to surface. 10 revelations now rewriting the Colorado's ongoing story. Could these newfound mysteries hint at hope for the West or warning of deeper peril to come? The blood-red mystery, a river transformed. On July 3, 2025, the Colorado River, one of North America's greatest natural landmarks, became ground zero for alarm and speculation. Those along the Grand Canyon, from tourists to local guides, were stunned by a surreal sight. Stretches of the river, usually a serene steel blue, had turned an intense crimson. The phenomenon quickly made global headlines. Lifelong residents and river rangers attested that such a transformation was outside their experience. The sudden color change triggered an urgent response. Authorities began sampling water day and night. Scientists flooded the area with lab equipment, and helicopters crisscrossed the canyon to document the phenomenon from above. Social media soon brimmed with photos of the transformed river, the strikingly red water stark against ancient canyon walls. Theories immediately surfaced across news networks and in communities all along the river. Was this the fallout of an environmental catastrophe, such as a major spill from upstream industries or accidental release of pollutants, might naturally occurring minerals, or a rare biological event, perhaps spurred by changing temperatures, be responsible? Or was the source something else, something linked to the riverbed's own hidden chemistry? Within days, research teams from universities and government agencies arrived, equipped with portable labs and the resolve to decipher the enigma. They gathered water from multiple locations, deployed infrared and multispectral sensors, and dredged the riverbed for sediment samples. Gradually, a consensus took shape. The cause was neither a single, clear-cut emergency nor a one-time spill. Instead, it was a convergence, a set of overlapping geological, biological, and possibly climatic factors, each weaving into an unfolding, complex story. What secrets, signaled by this burst of color, still awaited discovery within the river's depths? Was the river setting off an alarm, or was it simply revealing mysteries long masked by the flow of time? Geological shocks. Sediment reveals a violent past. As the search for answers intensified, geologists examining samples from the riverbed made revelations stretching back millennia. Dredged core samples showed heightened concentrations of oxidized iron, a mineral pigment well known for staining clay and soils with vivid reds and oranges. This mineral, lifted from the sediment, was directly responsible for the new hue. But the story the sediment told reached much further. Layer upon layer, the cores preserved traces of ancient events. Volcanic ash bands spoke of eruptions long ago, while discontinuous gravel layers pointed to powerful landslides in eras past. Most telling, however, were distinctive red mud strata, dating to episodes of abrupt climate swings, times when rains and floods surged, swelling the river and carrying oxidized minerals from distant reaches into its heart. Radiometric dating confirmed these events spanned thousands, even millions of years. In the case of the 2025 event, researchers found an alignment of unusual weather patterns and geological processes. Exceptional winter snowmelt, enhanced by rare late spring storms, gathered momentum in the river's upper reaches. This runoff scoured the slopes and tributaries for newly exposed soils rich in iron, creating the perfect natural conditions for a sudden pigment surge. While iron-rich silt and clay are not new to the Colorado Basin, being responsible in part for the region's signature landscapes, the concentration, timing, and visual intensity of this event were extraordinary. Buried within the sediment were also microfossils and grains bearing fingerprints of ancient life and environmental change. Their discovery reminded researchers that the river's present is inextricably linked to deep time processes, and that such events, though rare, are echoing natural patterns seen throughout the region's geologic past. Rather than signaling an unprecedented catastrophe, the river's red transformation echoed cycles of upheaval and renewal inscribed by water and stone across the ages. Unraveling the ecosystem, biological responses to the red surge. While geologists parsed mineral origins, biologists grappled with the river's changing chemistry and its impact on aquatic and riparian life. The abrupt inflow of iron and sediment posed urgent questions. How would fish, insects, and plant life respond? Would the ecosystem, already battered by drought and human usage, survive or suffer severe setbacks? Field teams began monitoring affected stretches, sampling water, aquatic plants, macroinvertebrates, and native fish such as trout and chub. Early results revealed both vulnerability and resilience. Certain cyanobacteria and extremophile algae, naturally suited to iron-rich environments, decorated the margins with brief color blooms. Yet native fish, sensitive to turbidity and chemical change, swam clear of the red currents, seeking refuge in side channels or deeper pools. Invertebrate life told a complex story. While some insect larvae capitalized on the altered conditions, thriving in the oxygen-rich rush of sediment-heavy water, others struggled with the sudden shift. This had cascading effects up the food chain. River birds, bats, and mammals adjusted diets and timings in response to shifting insect populations. Farther downstream, observers witnessed a pulse of insects erupt from riparian zones, followed as sediment loads peaked by a sharp decline in activity. Bird species that rely on predictable foraging along the water's edge shifted locations and behaviors, while predators such as herons and eagles briefly ranged beyond their usual haunts. Long-term studies will be required to document recovery and adaptation, but initial signs point to a rapid, if stressful, realignment of the river's ecosystem. The event underscored the dynamic balance that defines life in the Colorado Basin, cycles of disruption and renewal, and a community of species uniquely adapted to weathering environmental shocks. A fragile peace, states race to save the river. While scientists confronted nature's mysteries, a political drama unfolded as fraught and consequential as any found on the river's banks. For more than a year, the 7 states sharing the Colorado's waters, Arizona, California, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming, had been locked in stalemate over a new water-sharing agreement. The relentless decline of the river had raised the stakes, putting millions of residents, vast agricultural expanses, and countless businesses at risk. The dramatic visual evidence of the river's condition, now unmistakably red and troubled, introduced a new urgency. By July 2025, for the first time in months, reports described glimmers of hope as officials worked to break through the impasse. Water leaders, faced with the river's blunt reminder of its fragility, began considering unprecedented compromises and new frameworks for conservation. Draft proposals circulated in near secrecy, but key elements emerged: reductions in allocations, new incentives for water-saving technologies, deeper cooperation with tribal nations whose interests had long been sidelined, and contingency plans for responding to future droughts. Discussions reportedly involved not just state representatives, but also input from federal agencies, native nations, and environmental stakeholders. The striking transformation of the river haunted backroom negotiations, an inescapable symbol of urgency and consequence. The question remained, would the visual impact of the Red River push decision-makers to enact effective reform, or would long-standing rivalries and entrenched interests prevail? Whatever the outcome, the 2025 event amplified calls throughout the region for lasting solutions, not just to periodic scarcity, but to the fundamental challenge of sustaining a civilization on limited and variable water supplies. The river's future, and that of those dependent on it, hangs on decisions made in these critical moments. Unprecedented archaeological finds, secrets of the submerged canyons. Among the unexpected results of the river's altered flow and sediment transport were rare archaeological discoveries. Rapid changes in water level and the shifting of sedimentary deposits exposed artifacts and ancient features along riverbanks and inside canyons, objects hidden from previous view for decades or even centuries. Archaeologists and cultural resource specialists moved quickly to assess and protect exposed heritage sites. Remnants uncovered included stone tools, ceramic shards, and carved petroglyphs, testaments to the enduring human presence along the Colorado's course. Some relics were traced to ancestral Puebloan, Hohokam, and other indigenous cultures deeply tied to the river's rhythms. Rock art revealed by newly scoured canyon walls drew particular notice, with motifs of rivers, animals, and mysterious symbols shining anew in the altered light. While some of these discoveries were fleeting, quickly aged by the sun or reburied by shifting silt, others offered tantalizing glimpses into the lifeways and spiritual worlds of the region's first peoples. Strict protections and consultation with native nations guided archaeological response, and officials cautioned the public not to disturb or remove artifacts. The episode underscored that the Colorado's physical changes often bring to surface not just earth and mineral, but memories and histories deeply woven into the American land. A new era of observation, scientific tools, and surveillance. The July 2025 event spurred a wave of innovative surveillance and data collection along the Colorado. Early on, rapid response fieldwork dominated the investigation. Soon, however, a suite of advanced monitoring technologies arrived to provide round-the-clock insight. High-resolution satellites, orbiting far overhead, were programmed to scan the river's entire course, detecting subtle shifts in color, flow, and sediment load. Unmanned aerial vehicles, aerial drones, conducted frequent flights through winding canyon passages, capturing real-time imagery and mapping out the progression of the crimson water. Meanwhile, floating sensor buoys continuously logged water chemistry parameters, transmitting data instantly to regional research centers. Remote sensing technologies revealed the full extent of the red surge, tracking its pulse from isolated tributaries and mapping its eventual dissipation downstream. In-depth chemical analyses confirmed that the surge was most pronounced near the Grand Canyon, and that its arrival corresponded closely to storm events in the region's upper watershed. The digital dataset gathered from these tools is now expected to set new benchmarks for environmental science in the region. Through such high-resolution monitoring, researchers hope to better understand not only rare, striking phenomena like the Red River, but also the more subtle signals of ecosystem change wrought by climate, land use, and ongoing water management decisions. The 2025 event, in this way, became the catalyst for an era of unprecedented transparency in the science and stewardship of the Colorado. Climate on the edge. Warnings written in water. Long before the river turned red in 2025, the Colorado had become a symbol of climate instability. Persistent, record-setting drought over the preceding decades, coupled with rising temperatures and altered precipitation patterns, transformed the river's once reliable flow into uncertainty. Shrinking reservoirs, endangered species, and increased competition for resources formed the new status quo of the basin. The timing of the Red River event, following an exceptional snowpack and then unusual late spring rainfall, served as a sharp reminder of how volatile climate conditions now shape the watershed. Enhanced runoff, channeling sediment from freshly exposed earth, was a direct outgrowth of these changed weather patterns. Hydrologists and climatologists seized on the event to model a range of future scenarios. Would climate change, by making intense precipitation and runoff more common, deliver further disruptions, possibly recurring events of highly colored water, new ecological stresses, or altered chemical cycles? Or was this a rare convergence of variables unlikely to repeat anytime soon? With each year, the intersection of human use and natural variability grows more complex. In this context, the 2025 event stands as both a warning flare and a call to vigilance. The fate of the Colorado, and those who rely on it, will hinge on careful observation, sound science, and collaborative water management in the face of uncertainties yet to come. Nature's pulse, wildlife in the Crimson Current. Amid all the human and scientific response, life on the river itself was in flux. Wildlife biologists and indigenous stewards fanned out along the Colorado's banks, documenting the movements of animals large and small in the wake of the dramatic red surge. Mule deer and bighorn sheep, normally drawn to the river for water, approached the colored shorelines warily, often detouring for cleaner pools at a distance. Beaver colonies, alert to even slight changes in water chemistry, abandoned or shifted lodges where iron concentrations were highest. Raptors such as eagles and hawks, whose fishing often depends on water clarity, were observed changing their hunting grounds, venturing further downriver in search of viable prey. Not all impacts were negative. Carrion birds, including turkey vultures and ravens, found the sudden die-off of stressed or stranded fish, and invertebrates an unexpected feast, their numbers swelling along reaches affected by the surge. Other opportunistic species, such as coyotes, were attracted by the temporary, shifting availability of prey drawn to or displaced by altered river conditions. Wildlife experts cautioned that while some patterns might linger, the Colorado's ecosystem had faced and adapted to dramatic changes before. Whether these adjustments become permanent or prove to be another moment in the ongoing cycle will depend on recovery rates, future events, and the continued availability of refugia, places where native conditions persist even during turmoil. The human dimension, stories of awe, anxiety, and action. Through all the drama and discovery, the Red River of 2025 left a profound impression on the people of the Colorado Basin. Indigenous communities, ranchers, city dwellers, environmental advocates, and everyday river users all shared the shock and the sense of responsibility the event sparked. Elders from the Havasupai and other native nations drew on generations of stories and memory, recalling times when the river's color or flow was seen as a sign demanding respect for natural balance. Farmers, already coping with scarcity, came to the banks seeking reassurance or simply to witness history firsthand. Adventure guides, river runners, and campers took up the mantle of citizen monitors, reporting observations and supporting the coordinated scientific response. The event also galvanized renewed alliances. Tribal nations actively participated in water negotiations, asserting their long-held rights and advocating for more inclusive management practices. Environmental educators responded by launching new efforts to raise youth awareness of the river's vulnerability and importance, weaving the Red River into lessons on sustainability and stewardship. Among the public at large, awe and anxiety mixed. Some found renewed appreciation for the river's power and unpredictability, while others worried about what deeper disruptions might lie ahead. The event, as scientists and citizens alike emphasized, was not so much an apocalypse as a powerful reminder of nature's capacity for surprise, renewal, and demand for thoughtful coexistence. As policymakers hurried to reach consensus and establish a new compact, the challenge turned more sharply toward the future. How best to ensure that the Colorado and the communities linked by its waters will endure, adapt, and thrive. The river's challenge and promise. Now, as the river returns to its more familiar hues, the Colorado continues its ancient, restless journey, transformed yet enduring. The shocking red surge of July 2025 electrified imaginations and brought the river's fragility and resilience into sharp relief. Each of the 10 discoveries, from deep-time geology and unearthed artifacts to bursts of new biology and the hard-won progress of water negotiations, offers insight not just for scientists, but for everyone whose life is touched by this remarkable waterway. Will this be the moment the West heeds the river's warning, codifies cooperation, and renews its respect for nature's limits? Or will the lessons fade, carried away by the returning current and lost in political and economic struggle? The Colorado, winding eternally through cliff and canyon, reminds us that every crisis is also a beginning, and every shift a chance for new understanding. What might the river be telling us, even now? Are you ready to follow its current through science and stewardship into the mysteries and challenges of tomorrow? Share your thoughts and hopes below. What you ask, observe, and protect could help write the next chapter in the Colorado's ongoing saga. Let's remain vigilant, ever curious, and ready to learn from the wildest places on Earth. Remember, every discovery is just the beginning.